Okay, so we're going to talk about Module 1, Lesson 4 now. This lesson's about adding integers, and then we'll talk a little bit about the perimeter later. But let's start by talking about how to add integers. Now, one thing with this being an online class, there's nothing that I can do. You're really not supposed to use a calculator for this class, but I understand you're going to, and that's okay. I mean, it's part of the nature of this being an online class, but this lesson, if you just put everything into your calculator, it's going to be really easy, but you're going to miss learning the idea behind it, right? We want to get some of the patterns down for when our answers are positive, when our answers are negative, because it's going to help us when we're not just dealing with numbers. When we start to throw variables and more complicated expressions into this kind of a mix, then we want to be able to recognize some patterns and work with those. Okay, but so let's just talk about how, when we're adding integers, what's our process and how do we get the right sign? So we talked a little bit about integers before. Integers are the sign numbers, those positive numbers, and their opposites plus 0 is how we get those. So when we're adding them, there's really kind of two cases that we'll want to deal with. And the first one is, what do we do when our signs are the same? Okay, so this is going to apply for adding two positive numbers, and it's also going to apply when we're adding two negative numbers. Okay, so if our signs are the same, what we're going to do, and I'm just going to give you kind of a shorthand version of the rules here. Technically there should be some absolute values and things in here to be mathematically correct, but really what we're going to do is we're just going to drop the signs and we're going to add them. Okay, so drop the signs and add our numbers. Okay, and then we're going to keep the same sign we had originally. Okay, so what is this going to look like? Well, I mean, the first one is really easy. It'd just be something like 3 plus 5, something we've seen before. 3 plus 5, we're going to drop the sign, so these are just positive numbers. We're going to add them, so 3 plus 5 is 8. And then we're just going to keep the original sign. Since both these numbers were positive, our answer is positive. Okay, if we change this to negative 3 plus negative 5, on the other hand, well, our signs are still the same, so we're still using this rule. We're just going to drop the sign, so we're just going to think about 3 and 5. We're going to add those numbers, so 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay, and then we're going to keep the original sign. So the original sign was negative, so we're going to keep that. And so negative 3 plus negative 5 is negative 8. Okay, so that's going to be our rule for when our signs are the same. Okay, there's only one other rule. Okay, our signs are different and we're adding. Okay, then we're going to subtract the numbers after we've dropped off the signs. Okay, and then we're going to take the sign of the larger number. Okay, so it's going to look like this. If we have negative 3 plus 5, well, our signs are different, right? So we're just going to forget about the signs. Okay, again, we're just going to think about 3 and 5. We're just going to subtract them, just big minus small. So 5 minus 3 is going to give me 2. Okay, and then I'm going to take the sign of the larger number. So since 5 was larger originally, my answer is going to be positive, since that was the sign of my larger number there. Okay, if we change that around to 3 plus negative 5, okay, we're going to drop the signs off, and then we're going to subtract our numbers, big minus small. So 5 minus 3 is 2 again, right? But this time our bigger number is negative. 5 is our bigger number. It's got a negative sign on it, so our answer is going to be negative. One way you can think about this is, well, when your signs are different, what do you have more of at the beginning of the process? And this first problem up here, I have more positives. 5 is bigger than 3, right? So I have more positives, so my answer is going to be positive. And the second one down here, I have more negatives, right? Since 5 is, again, bigger than 3. So since I have more negatives, my answer is going to be negative. When your signs are different, your sign at the end is going to be whatever you have more of to start. Okay, so let's do a few different problems, get some practice with this. Okay, so let's say we wanted to do something like negative 18 plus 22. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, the first thing I want to think about is which one of these two rules are going to work for us. And what jumps out at me here is that my signs are different. I've got negative 18, I've got positive 22. So I want to, forget about the signs, just subtract my numbers. So 22 minus 18 is 4. And then what's my sign going to be? Don't guess here. Think about the rule. And the rule here says to take the sign of the larger number. So 18 is larger, 18 is positive. It is going to be plus 4. So that's going to be my answer there. Okay. We could also ask you to do something like this. We could also ask you to add x plus y if x equals negative 6 and y equals negative 3. Okay, so if we asked you to do this, well, we've dealt with some of these variables before, and when we know the values for our variables like we do here, we're just going to start by just substituting those values in. So I can plug that negative 6 in, I can plug that negative 3 in, and so I'll just make a new expression that looks like this. So negative 6 plus negative 3, right? And now that I've got it substituted, I'm just going to go through my rules. Okay, so thinking about which one of these is appropriate, well, this time my signs are the same, right? So it says here to drop the signs and add, and then keep the original sign. So I'm going to drop my sign. So think about 6 and 3, add those up. So 6 plus 3 is 9. And then I'm going to keep my original sign. Since both of these numbers were negative originally, I'm going to keep it negative. Okay? Does that make sense? Please let me know if you have any questions about this. Let's do one more. Kind of a special case that comes up every once in a while. We'll use this quite a bit a little later in the course. So when we have numbers like this, negative 15 plus positive 15, I can go through the process if I want to using my rules. And like my signs are different here, right? When my signs are different, my rule says to subtract the values, drop the signs and subtract. So 15 minus 15 is equal to 0. And then it says to take the sign of the larger one. In this case, there is no larger number, but that doesn't really matter because, positive or negative 0 is its own opposite. So we don't have to worry about that. So our answer here is going to be 0. This is what's going to happen anytime we add a number to its opposite. A lot of times we say that those numbers cancel out. Okay, and this will be something that's very, very useful to us when we start to do some more algebra ideas a little later in the course. Okay, so the next big idea is this idea of this thing called the perimeter. So I'm going to draw a quick shape here. Say we have a shape like this, and we're asked to find the perimeter of this shape. Okay. Let's say this over here is 10 meters, and this is 14 meters, and this is 3 meters. Oops, sorry, 3 meters there, and this is 4 meters here, and this is got to be 7 meters over here, and then this one down here. Let's say we don't even fill it in. Let's say we leave this as an X. And we'll do this on 1 or 2 questions. So what the perimeter is the perimeter is the distance around the shape, right? So if we have something like this with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides, we're going to add up the length of all 6 of those sides, and then that total is going to be our perimeter for our shape. Now I did throw a little curveball in here in that I didn't tell you the length of this side, okay? But what we've got to notice here is that this whole distance across the top is 14, right? And then this distance down here plus this distance up here is going the same distance across the shape, right? Across the shape, all the way across. So if this is going to be a 4, and this up here is going to be a 14, well, 4 plus 10 is equal to 14. So I know that this one down here has to be a 10. So you got to look at those sides and kind of think about how you can maybe use what you know to come up with the unknown pieces for a problem like this. Okay, so once you get to this point, then it's just a matter of adding up all the sides. I'm just going to take 10 plus 14 plus 3 plus 4 plus 7 plus 10, and we're going to add all those things together. There are a bunch of different strategies that you can take to do this. I kind of like to just start pairing numbers, like 10 and 14 is 24, 3 and 4 is 12, 7 and 10 is 17, right? And then I can pair some more. If I want, maybe I'll pair these. You can do this in whatever order you want. So I can add those and get 29. And then 29 plus 24 is 53. We do want to make sure that we're including units on our answers for problems like this, right? It's pretty important, whenever you're doing math in the real world, like if your boss asks you how we did last night and you say 7, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't tell you anything, right? It's important that you give some context to the problem. So, you do want to make sure you're including the units for problems like this, okay? So hopefully that's enough to get you started here on lesson 4. Please don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions at all.